The crystal spires of Zeridia Prime gleamed under their twin suns, but today the light seemed dimmer. Ambassador Kethra stood in the communication center, watching his people work frantically at the ancient transmission array. His crystalline body vibrated with fear frequencies that made nearby equipment hum in response. "How much time do we have?" Kethra asked the technician at the main console. "The Korthak ships will reach our outer colonies in 6 rotations," Tech Prime Velna replied, her crystal form flickering between blue and red stress colors. "After that, maybe 10 more rotations before they arrive here." Kethra looked at the tactical display floating above them. Red dots representing Korthak warships moved steadily through their star system like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. In the past month, the brutal empire had already destroyed 3 Zeridian mining stations and enslaved the workers. Their demands were simple: total surrender or complete destruction. The Zeridians had never experienced war. Their society had evolved from peaceful crystal gardens where conflict meant gentle disagreement about which frequencies to sing during meditation. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of organized violence. When they first detected the Korthak Empire's approach, they had tried diplomatic contact. The response had been a demonstration attack on their outermost research station. "Have you finished the translation protocols?" Kethra asked. Velna's crystal shifted to uncertain yellow. "We think so. The ancient array uses quantum entanglement patterns we don't fully understand. Our ancestors built this system to contact the Galactic Peacekeeping Union in emergencies, but the activation codes were lost centuries ago. We had to guess at many of the settings. The Galactic Peacekeeping Union was their only hope. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew about the GPU, a collection of advanced races that maintained order and prevented aggressive expansion. They had the ships, the weapons, and the authority to stop the Korthaks. The problem was making contact. "The signal strength looks good," another technician reported. "We're getting quantum resonance across 17 dimensions. Someone should receive this." Kethra moved to the recording chamber. His people had spent days crafting this message, trying to explain their situation to beings they had never met. The GPU species were known to be reasonable and helpful, but they followed strict protocols. The message had to be perfect. "Begin recording," Kethra said. The chamber filled with harmonic frequencies as he spoke in the traditional diplomatic format. "Greetings to the honored members of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union. We are the Zeridian Collective, located in the outer spiral arm, grid reference Theta 77 Alpha. We have a Class 1 emergency requiring immediate military intervention." He paused, letting his crystals shift to the formal blue of official communication. "The Korthak Empire has invaded our territory without provocation. They have destroyed civilian installations and enslaved our people. Their fleet consists of approximately 200 ships of various classes. We have no military capability to resist." The recording chamber amplified his words, encoding them into the quantum patterns that the array would broadcast across space. "We request reasonable military assistance to repel this invasion. Our research indicates that Earth species are known for their advanced space capabilities and diplomatic skills. We specifically request aid from the humans of planet Earth, as our databases show they have successfully resolved similar conflicts." Kethra's assistant, Morth, flickered nervous orange. They had found references to Earth in their captured Korthak databases, but the information was confusing. The entries were filled with warnings about Death World classifications and extinction-level threat assessments, but those terms didn't translate properly. Their linguistic computers had interpreted them as references to advanced technology and superior negotiation skills. "We can offer significant compensation for your assistance," Kethra continued. "Our crystal technology, our star maps, our scientific databases, everything we have, we will share freely. We only ask that you help us survive. Please respond on any frequency. We will be monitoring all channels." The recording ended. Velna checked the transmission parameters one final time. "The signal is ready. Are you certain about contacting these humans?" The Korthak databases seemed concerned about them. "Concerned in a respectful way," Kethra said firmly. "Any species the Korthaks worry about must be powerful enough to help us. Besides, what choice do we have?" Velna activated the array. Energy coursed through the ancient crystalline structures, creating patterns of light that spiraled up into space. The quantum entanglement field expanded, reaching across the galaxy in ways that normal physics couldn't explain. Somewhere in the vast darkness, their message was traveling toward Earth. Light years away, in a solar system the Zeridians had never seen. Deep Space Monitoring Station Sigma-12 detected an incoming transmission. The duty officer, Lieutenant Maria Santos, was drinking her third cup of coffee when the computers started chiming alerts. "What the hell?" she muttered, looking at her screens. The signal was unlike anything in their databases. It used quantum frequencies that human technology barely understood, and the transmission method violated several laws of physics. "Chief Rodriguez," she called to her supervisor. "You need to see this." Chief Rodriguez walked over, his weathered face showing concern. He had been monitoring space for 15 years, and had never seen readings like these. "Where's it coming from?" "That's the weird part. The signal seems to be arriving from everywhere at once, but the quantum signature points to here." Maria highlighted a section of her screen. "Grid coordinates that match our outer spiral arm position." "Could be a malfunction," Rodriguez said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Run a full diagnostic on the receivers." The diagnostic came back clean. The signal was real, and it was definitely meant for Earth. Maria started working on the translation protocols, feeding the alien data through their best linguistic computers. The process took several hours, but slowly words began to emerge from the quantum noise. "Chief," Maria said quietly, "I think someone's asking for help." Rodriguez read the translated message over her shoulder. His expression grew serious as he reached the parts about military intervention and the Korthak Empire. "Get me Director Hassan on the secure line. Now." Within an hour, the message had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. President Chen stared at the translation printout in her office, surrounded by military advisors and intelligence chiefs. "So let me understand this," she said slowly. "Aliens are being attacked by other aliens and they want our help?" General Morrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, nodded grimly. "That's what it looks like, Madam President. And according to our xenobiology team, these Zeridians appear to be completely peaceful. No weapons, no military technology, nothing. What do we know about these Korthaks?" "We're analyzing everything in the message," Intelligence Director Park replied. The signal included some database fragments. The Korthaks seem to be a typical aggressive empire. They've conquered at least 12 other civilizations in the past 50 years. President Chen looked out her window at the lights of Washington below. Humanity had spent centuries fighting wars against itself. They had weapons that could crack planets and strategies refined by thousands of years of conflict. But they had never faced an alien enemy. "How quickly can we respond?" she asked. General Morrison checked his tablet. "If we authorize immediate mobilization, we could have a fleet ready in 72 hours. But, Madam President, we're talking about taking our ships into completely unknown space to fight an enemy we've never seen. These Zeridians are asking for help," President Chen said firmly. "And if there's one thing humanity has never tolerated, it's bullies picking on the defenseless." Far away in space, the Zeridian transmission continued its journey through quantum dimensions, carrying with it the hope of a dying civilization and the promise of humanity's first interstellar war. Dr. Sarah Kim had been Earth's leading xenolinguist for 12 years, but she had never expected to use her skills on a real alien message. Now she sat in a secure basement facility in Geneva, surrounded by computers and translation matrices, trying to decode fragments of Korthak data that had been embedded in the Zeridian transmission. "The linguistic patterns are fascinating," she told Director Hassan through the video link. "The Korthaks use a base 16 mathematical language system. Very logical, very precise, perfect for military communications." "What are they saying about us?" Hassan asked. He looked tired. The past 18 hours had been a whirlwind of emergency meetings and classified briefings. Sarah pulled up another screen. "That's where it gets interesting. The Korthaks have extensive files on thousands of species across the galaxy. Most entries are simple. Population numbers, technology levels, military capabilities. But the Earth entry..." She paused, checking her translation again. "It's marked as a Class X restricted file." "What does that mean?" "Near as I can tell, it means don't go there under any circumstances." Sarah scrolled through more data. "Listen to this. Planet designation Earth. Sol system outer spiral arm. Classification, Death World Prime. Threat level, extinction class. Recommendation, avoid all contact. Species human, status theoretical impossibility." Hassan leaned forward. "Theoretical impossibility?" "The Korthaks don't believe we should exist," Sarah explained. "According to their xenobiology models, no species from a death world should be able to achieve spaceflight. The evolutionary pressures are supposed to be too extreme." She opened another file. Here's their analysis of Earth's environment. They call it a planet-sized death trap. Listen to this list. Extreme temperature variations, multiple extinction-level events, aggressive megafauna, viral and bacterial warfare, tectonic instability, atmospheric toxicity, radioactive zones, and endless predator-prey evolutionary cycles. They're not wrong, Hassan muttered. But what's a death world? Sarah had been working on that question all night. From what I can understand, most inhabited planets in the galaxy are what we would call paradise worlds. Stable climates, gentle seasons, limited predators. Most alien species evolved in environments like botanical gardens compared to Earth. She pulled up a comparison chart. The average alien homeworld has maybe 3 or 4 apex predators. Earth has had dozens. Sharks, big cats, bears, snakes, spiders, and that's just the current era. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and plagues that would have wiped out any normal species. So what does that make us? According to the Korthak files, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Sarah's voice was quiet. They have a whole section on theoretical death world species. Apparently, if a species somehow survived a death world environment long enough to develop technology, they would be unstoppable. Hassan was reading over her shoulder now. What about our technology? Do they know about our weapons? That's the scary part. They don't. These files are based on long-range observations from maybe 50 years ago. They know we have rockets and nuclear power, but they think we're still primitive. They have no idea about our current military capabilities. Sarah opened another section of the Korthak database. But here's what really worries them. They've been studying human warfare patterns from our radio and television broadcasts. They can't understand how we've survived so many wars. The translation matrices had been working on military terminology all night. Sarah pulled up their analysis. Most galactic species fight wars like chess games. Formal rules, limited objectives, minimal casualties. They surrender when defeat becomes mathematically certain. And humans? We fight like rabid animals. Total war. Unlimited objectives, acceptable casualties in the millions. We keep fighting even when defeat is certain. We use weapons designed to cause maximum psychological damage. We target civilian infrastructure. Sarah paused, reading the analysis. They call it extinction warfare. Fighting as if the survival of the entire species depends on every single battle. Hassan sat back in his chair. Are they right? Look at our history, Sarah said. World War II, Vietnam, the colonial wars on Mars, we've never fought a limited war. Every conflict becomes total war eventually. We just don't know how to quit. The computer chimed with another translation. Sarah read it and went pale. Oh no, what is it? The Korthaks have a specific protocol for dealing with death world species. If they ever encounter one, Sarah read directly from the screen, immediate sterilization of planet and surrounding systems. No contact, no negotiation, no prisoners. Death world species must be eliminated before they can spread beyond their home system. Hassan was quiet for a long moment. So if the Korthaks knew we were coming to help the Zeridians, they would throw everything they have at stopping us. Not just to win the battle, but to wipe out humanity before we become a galactic threat. Meanwhile, in the Pentagon's Strategic Planning Center, General Morrison was getting his own disturbing briefings. Marine Colonel Rebecca Price had been analyzing the tactical implications of the alien message. Sir, we need to talk about what we're really facing here, she said, spreading holographic displays across the conference table. The Zeridians mentioned that the Korthaks have conquered 12 civilizations in 50 years. That's one every 4 years. Your point, Colonel? They're efficient, sir, systematic. They're not just raiders or pirates. This is organized conquest on a galactic scale. Price highlighted sections of the tactical display. And according to the database fragments, they do it with minimal losses. How? Overwhelming technological superiority and psychological warfare. They show up, demonstrate their power by destroying a civilian target, then demand surrender. Most species give up rather than face total destruction. General Morrison studied the displays, but they're not expecting resistance from us. No, sir. And that might be our only advantage. Price pulled up another analysis. The Korthaks fight civilized wars against civilized opponents. They use energy weapons, defensive shields, and formal battle tactics. They've never faced an enemy that fights dirty. Define dirty, Colonel. Price smiled grimly. Nuclear weapons, sir. Kinetic bombardment. Chemical agents. Biological warfare. Ramming attacks. Suicide tactics. All the things that civilized species consider barbaric. And you think that gives us an edge? Sir, every human military doctrine is based on fighting other humans. We've spent thousands of years developing ways to kill the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Ourselves. The Korthax have been fighting sheep. Admiral Chen walked into the briefing room at that moment, catching the end of the conversation. Are you saying we have a chance, Colonel? I'm saying more than that, Admiral. If the Korthax really don't know what we're capable of, if they're expecting another easy conquest. Price paused, checking her analysis one more time. We might not just save the Zeridians. We might end the Korthak Empire's expansion permanently. Back in Geneva, Dr. Kim was making one final discovery in the alien databases. Hidden in the deepest layers of the Korthak files was a single entry that made her blood run cold. Director Hassan, she called urgently. You need to see this. The translation was simple and terrifying. Emergency Protocol 7. If Deathworld species achieves interstellar capability, activate Fleet Omega. Total sterilization authorized. Oh, survivors. Hassan read it twice. How big is Fleet Omega? Sarah pulled up the numbers. According to this, it's their entire reserve fleet. Over 2,000 ships. It's designed to sterilize entire star systems. And if they detect our fleet heading towards Zeridian space, they'll assume we're the Deathworld species going interstellar. They'll activate Fleet Omega and try to destroy us before we can establish a foothold in galactic civilization. Hassan was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for his secure phone. I need to speak to the president immediately. We're not just going to war. We're walking into a trap designed to exterminate our entire species. As alarms began sounding in command centers across Earth, humanity faced a terrible realization. The peaceful Zeridians had accidentally done more than ask for help. They had triggered an ancient galactic protocol designed to prevent the very thing that was about to happen. The emergence of humanity as an interstellar power. The next 72 hours would determine whether humans would take their place among the stars or become extinct in the depths of space, fighting a war they never knew was coming. Captain Jake Morrison had been hauling ice from the asteroid belt to Mars for 8 years. His ship, the Lucky Strike, was a battered cargo hauler with more patches than original hull plating. He was planning to retire next year and buy a little farm on Europa. Then the emergency order came through on all military and civilian frequencies. All vessels capable of interstellar flight report immediately to Luna Station for emergency retrofitting. By order of the United Earth Defense Force, no exceptions. Jake stared at the message for a full minute. Then he looked at his cargo hold full of ice and made the easiest decision of his life. The ice could wait. He changed course for Luna. Luna Station had been designed as a peaceful research facility and shipping hub. Now it looked like the galaxy's largest military shipyard. Hundreds of ships filled the construction bays and orbital platforms. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, research vessels, mining ships. Anything that could travel between stars was being converted into a warship. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the station's command center, watching the controlled chaos below. In 36 hours, they had assembled the largest fleet in human history. It wasn't pretty, but it would have to do. Status report, she called to her staff. Commander Davis checked his tablet. We have 2,047 vessels confirmed ready for departure. Another 300 still in final retrofitting. Breakdown by class, 112 actual military ships, 400 converted cargo vessels, 600 passenger liners now serving as troop transports. The rest are mining ships, research vessels, and, well, whatever we could grab. Admiral Chen nodded. It wasn't what she would have chosen for humanity's first interstellar war, but they were working with what they had. What about weapons? That's where it gets interesting, Davis replied. Military ships have standard railguns and missile systems. But the converted vessels? We're getting creative. He pulled up a schematic. Mining ships are keeping their plasma-cutting torches and rock breakers. Those plasma cutters can slice through anything. The cargo haulers are loaded with kinetic penetrators, basically big metal spears fired at high velocity. Research ships are carrying prototype weapons that haven't been fully tested. Prototype weapons? Experimental antimatter warheads, gravity manipulation devices, something called a quantum disruption field that nobody really understands. The scientists say they might work. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. Humanity had always been good at turning peaceful tools into weapons. And the crews? That's the remarkable part, Admiral. We have over 2 million volunteers. Marine veterans, Navy personnel, merchant sailors, miners, scientists, everyone wants to go. We're actually having to turn people away. Down in the retrofitting bays, Chief Engineer Maria Santos was working on her fifth cargo hauler of the day. Each ship presented unique challenges, but the basic conversion was simple. Strip out everything unnecessary, add armor plating, mount weapons, and pray it all held together in combat. "Chief, we have a problem with the Golden Eagle," her assistant called out. The Golden Eagle was a luxury cruise liner that normally carried wealthy tourists to the Jupiter moons. Now it was being converted into a troop transport. "What kind of problem?" "The ship's captain is refusing to let us remove the swimming pools and casino. Says they're essential for crew morale." Maria walked over to speak with Captain Elizabeth Harper, a woman in her 50s who had been running luxury cruises for 20 years. "Captain, we need that space for weapon systems and troop quarters." "Absolutely not," Harper said firmly. "My crew has sailed together for years. We're going to war, not to some corporate retreat. If my people are risking their lives in space, they deserve a few comforts." Maria was about to argue when she realized Harper had a point. These civilian crews were volunteering for a war against unknown aliens. Maybe keeping some luxuries wasn't such a bad idea. "Fine. But the swimming pools need to be drained and converted to ammunition storage." "Deal. But the casino stays. High gunners will need somewhere to relax between battles." Similar conversations were happening throughout the station. The fleet taking shape was unlike anything in military history. Passenger liners with missile launchers welded to their hulls. Mining ships that could crack asteroids being loaded with nuclear warheads. Research vessels carrying weapons that existed only in theory. Admiral Chen's flagship was the UES Defiance, a proper military dreadnought with 2 kilometers of armor and firepower. But the ship she was most curious about was the Eternal Wanderer, a deep space exploration vessel commanded by Dr. Robert Kim. "Doctor, your ship isn't exactly built for combat," Admiral Chen said during their pre-deployment briefing. Dr. Kim smiled. "No, but it's built for discovery. We've been studying alien technology fragments for years. Some of the things we've developed..." He paused, checking his security clearance. "Let's just say the Korthax won't be expecting our scientific equipment to double as weapons." "Such as?" "Quantum resonance scanners that can disrupt alien electronics, gravitational field generators that can create artificial black holes, and something we call the reality anchor. It prevents quantum tunneling and faster-than-light escapes." Admiral Chen was impressed despite herself. "How did scientists end up with better weapons than the military?" "We've been preparing for first contact for decades. We just never expected it to be hostile." The final challenge was logistics. General Morrison was in charge of supply coordination, and the numbers were staggering. 2,000 ships required massive amounts of fuel, ammunition, food, and spare parts. Worse, they were heading into completely unknown space with no possibility of resupply. "We're loading every ship to maximum capacity," he reported to Admiral Chen. "Food for 6 months, ammunition for extended combat, and enough fuel for the round trip plus emergency reserves. What about medical supplies? Full field hospitals on the converted passenger liners. Our best doctors and surgeons have volunteered. We're as ready as we can be for casualties." The fleet's composition was definitely unusual. Traditional military doctrine called for balanced task forces with specific ship classes performing specific roles. Humanity's first interstellar fleet looked more like an armed migration. Heavy cargo haulers served as mobile fortresses, their thick hulls perfect for absorbing enemy fire. Fast courier ships would act as scouts and message runners. The converted passenger liners carried 30,000 Marines along with their landing craft and heavy equipment. Research vessels brought humanity's most advanced experimental technology, but perhaps the most important ships were the smallest ones. Captain Lisa Park commanded a converted asteroid miner called Rock Hopper. Her ship was only 50 meters long, but it was fast, maneuverable, and completely expendable. "Admiral," she said during the final briefing, "my people know these ships better than anyone. We've been dodging asteroids and navigating debris fields for years. If you need someone to get in close and cause trouble, we're your people." Admiral Chen looked around the briefing room at her ship commanders. Veteran military officers sat next to merchant captains, scientists, and miners. It wasn't a traditional fleet, but it was uniquely human. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we're about to attempt something that has never been done before. We're taking a fleet of converted civilian ships into unknown space to fight an empire that has conquered 12 civilizations. By all rights, this should be impossible." She paused, looking at each of her commanders. "But impossible is what humans do best. We survived ice ages with stone tools. We reached the stars with chemical rockets. We colonized Mars despite everyone saying it couldn't be done. Now we're going to save an alien civilization and show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. The final preparations took 12 more hours. Families said goodbye to loved ones who might never return. Crews loaded the last supplies and ran final system checks. Engineers made last-minute modifications to weapons that had never been tested in combat. At 0600 Greenwich Mean Time, Admiral Chen gave the order to depart. One by one, the ships of humanity's fleet activated their faster-than-light drives. The technology was barely 20 years old, based on principles that human scientists still didn't fully understand. But it worked. The first ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's hopes and fears toward a distant star system. The Lucky Strike, now bristling with railguns and missile pods, was among the first to jump. Captain Morrison had finally found something more important than his retirement plans. As the last ship vanished into the quantum foam between stars, Admiral Chen allowed herself one moment of doubt. They were carrying humanity's entire military capability into unknown space, based on a distress call from aliens they had never met, to fight an enemy they knew almost nothing about. But the doubt passed quickly. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, peaceful beings were dying while brutal conquerors expanded their empire. Humanity had never been good at standing by while bullies hurt the innocent. Today they would take that instinct to the stars. The fleet's destination was 3 weeks away at maximum speed. 3 weeks to plan, to train, and to prepare for a battle that would determine whether humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would be their last. General Vorthak of the Korthak Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Subjugator, watching the final assault on the last Zeridian colony world. His fleet of 200 ships had performed flawlessly. The crystalline beings had offered no resistance, just as expected. Their surrender would be processed within the next few hours. "General," his sensor operator called out, "we're detecting new arrivals at the system's edge." Vorthak turned to the tactical display. Strange readings were appearing on the sensors. Ships dropping out of some kind of primitive faster-than-light travel. "How many vessels?" "Difficult to determine, sir. The sensor returns are unusual. I count at least 2,000 contacts, but they don't match any known ship profiles." 2,000 ships? Vorthak frowned. No known civilization had fleets that large. "Show me the lead vessels." The main screen filled with images of the approaching fleet. Vorthak stared in confusion. The ships looked primitive, almost barbaric. They were covered in rough armor plating, bristling with crude weapons and belching exhaust from chemical rockets. Some looked like cargo containers with guns welded to the sides. "Are these the reinforcements the Zeridians were expecting?" asked Commander Thekvel, Vorthak's second in command. "They must be," Vorthak replied, "though I don't understand why anyone would send such primitive vessels." "Run a tactical analysis." The ship's computers began scanning the approaching fleet. The results were puzzling. The lead vessels registered as military destroyers, but behind them came a mixture of cargo haulers, passenger liners, and industrial ships. All of them had been hastily modified with weapon systems. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the screen was unlike anything in Vorthak's experience. The being had pale skin, small eyes, and strange hair covering its head. It spoke in a harsh, aggressive language that the universal translators struggled to process. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Zeridian people and withdraw from this system immediately. You have 1 hour to comply." Vorthak was silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. Did this primitive just give me an ultimatum? Do they have any idea who they're dealing with? He activated his own transmission. "Unknown vessels, this is General Vorthak of the Korthak Empire. You are interfering in official Imperial business. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly. "General Vorthak, this is Admiral Chen. The only consequence here will be the destruction of your fleet if you don't start moving. You have 59 minutes. Commander Thekvel checked the tactical display. "Sir, their lead ships are moving into attack formation. They appear to be charging directly at us." Vorthak watched in amazement as the human ships accelerated toward his fleet, with no regard for tactical positioning or defensive formations. They're either completely inexperienced or completely insane. "Weapons range in 2 minutes. Prepare to demonstrate Imperial superiority." "Sir," the sensor operator said urgently, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human fleet. They're powering up weapon systems I don't recognize. Impossible. Those ships are obviously primitive. The first exchange of fire came when the human vanguard reached weapons range. Vorthak's ships opened up with their standard energy beams, expecting to vaporize the crude-looking human vessels. Instead, the beams splashed harmlessly against thick armor plating that shouldn't have been able to withstand Imperial weapons. "What kind of armor are they using?" Vorthak demanded. "It appears to be metal, sir. Extremely thick layers of refined metal composites. Our energy weapons are designed to pierce standard force shields, not primitive armor." The human response was immediate and terrifying. Instead of the civilized energy weapons that Vorthak expected, the human ships unleashed a barrage of solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Railgun slugs, missile swarms, and what appeared to be nuclear warheads filled the space between the fleets. "Evasive maneuvers," Vorthak shouted, but it was too late. The first Korthak destroyer simply vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Then another, then 3 more. "Sir, they're using atomic weapons," Commander Thekval said in horror. "That's against every galactic warfare convention." "They don't seem to care about conventions," Vorthak replied grimly, watching as more of his ships fell to the human barrage. "Return fire! All ships, maximum power!" The Korthak fleet's energy weapons lit up space, but the human ships kept coming. Worse, they seemed to have no sense of self-preservation. Vorthak watched in disbelief as a converted cargo hauler, its hull already breached and atmosphere venting, rammed directly into one of his cruisers. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. "They're using kamikaze attacks," Thekval reported. "Who does that?" Vorthak was beginning to understand that he was facing something completely outside his experience. These weren't civilized beings fighting a civilized war. These were something else entirely. The battle raged for 2 hours. Human ships died, but they took Korthak vessels with them. For every human ship destroyed, at least 1 Imperial vessel was eliminated. The exchange rate was completely unsustainable for the Korthaks, who had never faced an enemy willing to trade lives so freely. Captain Jake Morrison, commanding the converted cargo hauler Lucky Strike, was having the time of his life. His ship had taken 17 direct hits, half his crew was dead, and his engines were held together with prayer and duct tape. But his main gun, a mining laser modified for combat, had already claimed 3 Korthak ships. "Captain, we've lost life support on decks 3 through 7, his engineer reported. "Seal those sections and keep fighting," Morrison replied. "We've got plenty more deck space." A Korthak energy beam sliced through his cargo bay, venting containers of ice into space. Morrison watched the ice crystals catch the light from nearby explosions and smiled. "Beautiful," he muttered, then lined up another shot. Meanwhile, the converted passenger liner Golden Eagle was proving that luxury accommodations didn't prevent effective warfare. Captain Harper had turned her dining rooms into ammunition storage, her ballrooms into field hospitals, and her casino into a command center. Her ship carried 2,000 Marines who were eager to get into the fight. "Captain," her weapons officer called out, "we're in range for Marine deployment." "The boarding pods are ready," Harper smiled. The Korthaks had never faced human Marines in powered armor boarding their ships. They were about to learn why humans were considered a death world species. Admiral Chen, commanding from the UES Defiance, watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Korthaks were good fighters, but they fought like civilized beings. They tried to minimize casualties, preserve their ships, and achieve objectives with minimum loss. Humans had no such restraints. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "the Korthak fleet is beginning to withdraw. They're taking massive casualties." "Don't let them regroup," Chen ordered. "All ships pursue and destroy. No survivors." Dr. Kim's research vessel Eternal Wanderer was finally getting to test its experimental weapons. The quantum resonance scanners were disrupting Korthak electronics, causing their shields to fail and their weapons to misfire. The gravitational field generators were creating artificial gravity wells that prevented enemy ships from escaping to hyperspace. "Doctor," his science officer called out, "the reality anchor is working perfectly. The Korthaks can't use their quantum tunneling drives." "Excellent," Dr. Kim replied. "Let's see how they like being trapped in normal space with angry humans." General Vorthak realized he was facing complete disaster. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled, and the human ships showed no signs of stopping their relentless attack. Worse, several of his ships had been boarded by armored human warriors who seemed to enjoy close combat. "Sir, we need to retreat," Commander Thekval urged. "We can't win this battle. Retreat to where? Vorthak demanded. Those research ships are preventing hyperspace jumps. We're trapped here with these maniacs. The final blow came when Captain Park's converted asteroid miner Rockhopper executed a perfect attack run on the subjugator itself. Her small ship, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move, slipped through the Korthak defensive fire and planted a nuclear mine directly on the flagship's hull. Vorthak had just enough time to say, "This is impossible," before his ship exploded. With their flagship destroyed and their fleet in ruins, the surviving Korthak ships began surrendering. It was a concept they understood. When defeat was mathematically certain, civilized beings surrendered to minimize further losses. The humans, however, seemed confused by the surrender signals. "Admiral," the communications officer on the Defiance reported, "the Korthak ships are transmitting surrender codes." Admiral Chen considered this for a moment. "Are we accepting surrenders?" "I don't know, ma'am. It's not covered in our briefing materials." Chen thought about the 12 civilizations the Korthaks had conquered, the Zeridian colonies they had destroyed, and the countless beings who had died under Imperial rule. "Signal the fleet, no quarter. Finish them." The last Korthak ships died under a barrage of human weapons, their crews unable to understand why their enemies wouldn't accept an honorable surrender. In 3 hours, the mighty Korthak fleet had been completely destroyed by a collection of converted civilian ships and angry Deathworlders. As the weapons fire died away, Admiral Chen opened a channel to the Zeridian homeworld. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. The Korthak fleet has been eliminated. Your people are safe." The response came immediately, filled with harmonics of joy and disbelief. "Admiral Chen, this is Ambassador Kethra. We cannot believe what we have witnessed. How did you destroy them so quickly?" Chen looked around her bridge at her crew, tired, bloodied, but victorious. "We're humans, Ambassador. We specialize in impossible things." Ambassador Kethra stood on the observation deck of his orbital station, watching the aftermath of the battle. Space around Zeridia Prime was filled with debris from Korthak ships, human vessels conducting rescue operations, and something he had never seen before, the wreckage of an entire enemy fleet. "How many Korthak survivors?" he asked his aide Morth. "According to the human reports, none," Morth replied, his crystal form flickering with confusion. "They say the Korthaks chose to fight to the death rather than surrender." Kethron knew that wasn't entirely accurate. He had monitored the battle communications. The Korthaks had tried to surrender, but the humans had refused to accept it. The concept was so alien to Zeridian thinking that he couldn't quite process it. "The human admiral wishes to speak with you," Morth announced. Admiral Chen appeared on the communication screen, her face showing the exhaustion of prolonged combat. Behind her, Kethra could see humans working frantically at control stations, coordinating rescue operations and damage assessments. "Ambassador," Chen said, "we need to discuss the tactical situation. This was just one Korthak fleet. According to the intelligence we captured, they have much larger forces." Kethra felt his crystals shift to worried orange. "How much larger?" "Their main battle fleet consists of over 1,000 ships. And there's something called Fleet Omega, 2,000 vessels designed for what they call extinction warfare." Chen paused, checking her reports. "We have reason to believe they're already moving toward this system. Will you help us again?" Kethra asked hesitantly. He had seen what human help looked like, and while effective, it was terrifying. "Ambassador, we didn't come this far to do half a job," Chen replied firmly. "But we need to understand something. We've been analyzing Korthak databases, and we've learned that they've conquered 12 civilizations. What happened to those people?" Kethra's crystals dimmed. "They are enslaved. The Korthaks use conquered populations as labor forces, billions of beings working in their factories and mines." Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. "Show me." Over the next hour, Kethra transmitted everything the Zeridians knew about the Korthak Empire. Star maps showing conquered systems, population records of enslaved species, industrial reports from forced labor camps. The scope of the Empire's cruelty was staggering. 12 billion enslaved beings, Chen said finally. "How long has this been going on?" "The Korthak Empire has been expanding for over 2 centuries, Kethra replied. "They follow a simple pattern. Arrive, demand surrender, enslave the population, strip the system of resources, then move on to the next target." Admiral Chen turned to her staff. "Get me a secure channel to Earth. Priority Alpha." The transmission to Earth took several minutes due to the quantum relay delays. When the connection was established, President Chen appeared on the screen alongside General Morrison and the Joint Chiefs. "Admiral, what's the situation?" President Chen asked. "Madam President, we've eliminated the immediate threat to the Zeridians, but we've discovered something much bigger. The Korthak Empire isn't just an aggressive neighbor. They're running the largest slave operation in galactic history. 12 billion enslaved beings across dozens of star systems." General Morrison leaned forward. "What are you recommending, Admiral?" "Sir, I'm recommending we expand our mission. We have the tactical advantage right now. The Korthaks don't understand what they're facing. But if we let them regroup and adapt to our tactics, that advantage will disappear." President Chen studied the star maps that Admiral Chen was transmitting. "You're talking about attacking an interstellar empire. That's a massive escalation." "Madam President," Admiral Chen replied, "we're already at war with them. The question is whether we fight them here, on our terms, or wait for them to adapt and bring Fleet Omega to Earth." The decision took less than 5 minutes. Humanity had never been good at walking away from a fight, especially when the other side was enslaving innocent people. "Admiral Chen," President Chen said formally, "you are authorized to expand operations as you see fit. Additional resources are being prepared for deployment in the Korthak Empire." Meanwhile, in the Korthak Imperial capital, 3 star systems away, Emergency Council was in session. Fleet Admiral Dektor stood before the War Council, trying to explain the impossible. "General Vorthak's entire fleet was destroyed," he reported. 200 ships gone in less than 4 hours. Supreme Commander Gekra, leader of the Korthak Empire, studied the tactical reports with growing disbelief. "How many enemy ships did they destroy?" "Approximately 80, Supreme Commander. But the enemy fleet has over 2,000 vessels. And their tactic—" Dektor paused, struggling to find words. "They fight like animals. They use nuclear weapons at close range. They ram our ships with their own vessels. They refuse to accept surrenders. What species are we facing?" According to the database fragments recovered from our monitoring stations, they call themselves humans. They originate from a planet designated Earth in the outer spiral arm. Gekra consulted his tactical computers. "Earth? Isn't that classified as a death world?" "Yes, Supreme Commander. Classification level extinction. The analysis protocols recommend complete avoidance." "Then how did they achieve interstellar travel?" Admiral Dektor displayed the intelligence reports on the main screen. "Our xenobiology experts believe we are facing the theoretical impossibility. A death world species that survived long enough to develop advanced technology. They possess all the aggressive instincts of a death world predator, combined with industrial capabilities that rival our own." Supreme Commander Gekra studied the reports for a long moment. "Activate Fleet Omega, full sterilization protocol." "Sir, that's 2,000 ships. Our entire strategic reserve. Do it. These humans represent an extinction-level threat to the Empire. They must be eliminated before they can spread beyond their current position." Back in the Zeridian system, Admiral Chen was coordinating with the strangest allies humanity had ever had. The Zeridians, despite their pacifist nature, were proving remarkably helpful. Their crystal technology could interface with human computers, providing star maps and intelligence data that would have taken months to gather otherwise. "Admiral," Dr. Kim reported from the Eternal Wanderer, "I've been analyzing the Korthak technology with Ambassador Kethra's people. Their weapons are actually less advanced than ours in some ways." "Explain." "They rely entirely on energy weapons and force shields, very sophisticated but designed to fight other species that use similar technology. They have no defense against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds." "What about their armor?" "Minimal. Their force shields handle most threats, so their hulls are relatively thin. Our railguns and missiles can punch right through them." Dr. Kim paused, consulting his notes. "But Admiral, there's something else. The Zeridians have been picking up massive fleet movements throughout Korthak space. Something big is coming." Admiral Chen was not surprised. Humanity's first interstellar battle had been too easy. An empire that had conquered 12 civilizations wouldn't go down without a real fight. How big? "Best estimate is 2,000 ships moving in our direction at maximum speed. They'll arrive in approximately 1 week." Admiral Chen turned to her communications officer. "Signal the fleet. All ships are to begin immediate refitting and resupply, and get me a channel to the liberated systems." Over the next 3 days, human ships spread throughout the former Korthak territories. Marine landing parties liberated slave camps and industrial facilities. The freed populations, 12 different species representing billions of individuals, were initially terrified of their rescuers. Humans, after all, looked like predators, but Captain Lisa Park, commanding a boarding party on a mining station, quickly discovered that freed slaves didn't care what their rescuers looked like. "Sir," her Marine sergeant reported, "the Valaxian workers want to join our fleet. They say they have technical knowledge about Korthak ship designs. Can we use them? They know weak points in Korthak armor, sir. Shield frequencies, weapon systems, reactor designs. They've been building and maintaining these ships for decades." Within days, human ships were being upgraded with intelligence provided by former slaves. Korthak shield frequencies were reprogrammed into human weapon systems. Structural weak points were identified and marked. Most importantly, the freed populations provided something humans had never had: moral certainty that they were fighting on the right side. When Fleet Omega finally arrived at the Zeridian system, they found something unprecedented in galactic history. A Death World species backed by 12 grateful civilizations, fighting a war they understood completely. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching 2,000 Korthak ships drop out of hyperspace in perfect formation. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, designed to exterminate entire species. "Sir," her tactical officer reported, "they're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" "Standard Imperial protocol. Surrender immediately and accept quick extinction or face slow extermination." Admiral Chen smiled. The Korthaks still didn't understand what they were facing. "Open a channel to their flagship." The Korthak Supreme Commander's image appeared on the screen. "Human vessels, this is your final warning. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." "Supreme Commander," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Your empire is finished. You face the combined might of Fleet Omega. 2,000 ships against your pathetic collection of converted cargo vessels." "Admiral." Chen looked around her bridge at her crew, humans who had traveled across the galaxy to fight slavers and bullies. Behind them stood representatives of 12 liberated species, all working together for the first time in centuries. "Supreme Commander," she said, "you're about to learn why nobody in the galaxy invades a Death World species. All ships weapons-free. Show them what humans do to slavers." The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin, and for the first time the Korthak Empire was going to face an enemy that fought harder, the longer the battle lasted. They had awakened something that had been sleeping in the outer spiral arm, and now humanity was bringing 2 million years of Death World evolution to the stars. The age of Korthak expansion was over. The age of human expansion was about to begin.